With breaking news just into our newsroom within the last few minutes, a Lancaster County judge's decision has cleared the way for medical marijuana in Nebraska to continue moving toward becoming a reality. First Alert 6's Brian Mashery has been on this story for months now, continues to follow the latest developments. Brian joins me now live from the newsroom to break down the legal developments this afternoon. Brian, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Dave. Tomorrow, Governor Pillen will fulfill a constitutional duty. He will issue proclamations for the issues approved by voters in November, including one he wholeheartedly disagrees with, legalizing medical marijuana, the one Nebraska voters overwhelmingly approved. Now, just in the last hour, those who've been suing over the signatures part argued that a judge in Lincoln must step in at the 11th hour and keep the governor from issuing those proclamations. Moments ago, Judge Susan Strong said no, rejecting the idea, explaining that the public interest in stopping it just isn't there, especially if you look at the numbers. Remember, 70% of Nebraska voters want medical marijuana legalized and regulated. The basis for the last-minute lawsuit centers on the federal government. For years, it's classified marijuana as a Schedule I controlled substance and that states don't get to play by different rules. But those with Nebraskans for Medical Marijuana point out that 48 other states have passed laws legalizing some form of medical cannabis or its derivatives, and that Nebraska, as do the other states, have a constitutional right to address any unique needs of their citizens without interference from the government. Bottom line here, Dave, after the governor's proclamation tomorrow, the Liquor Commission, along with a couple of appointed members, will begin to create the framework for regulating medical marijuana. Now, that lawsuit filed late last night saying it's breaking federal law, that will still be heard at some point, but the law will proceed unless it's overturned one day. I'm Brian Mashery in the newsroom, First Alert 6.